All right, man. A lot of speculation going on, as we know, as you probably know, for a long time. This day was bound to happen. Diddy finally arrested. I believe he's in a federal jail somewhere in Brooklyn, if I'm not
Mm,
mistaken. But what I
mm,
wanted to talk with you about is there is a lot of that. You got the people who are fans who don't really understand what's going on, and then you got
mhm.
the industry people who are like, "Man, free the black man," and then you got the people like, "Yo, bro, y'all watch him terrorize these people for so many years." And I saw you live, and you were talking about, you were there.
Oh yeah.
So I'll start it with, first let you introduce yourself, and then is your history in terms of the music industry?
All right. Dave Anderson, the business bully. Now, first of all, when he says I was there, I have never once in my life attended a freak off. Like hashtag be clear. I have been to some Diddy parties, several actually. I've been to some white parties. I've been to some Denim and Diamonds parties. I have never once ever been to a Diddy freak off. I want to make that abundantly clear. Like crystal clear. Listen, clearer than a brand new swimming pool on day one. Clear. Yay. But yeah, no, I started the industry in 1987. Radio, television, film, music. I've done backgrounds for Gerald Levert, Teddy Pendergrass. I'm the youngest person to re-record the twist with Chubby Checker, beating the Fat Boys by about 14 years. Like my career is weird. I've lived a bunch of different lives. But the thing of it is, Puff was always cool because Puff was, he's the party dude. He had the best artists. He had like everything about the way that he moved was dope, right? But like everybody, he got a side. And what he did was, in comparison to a Suge Knight, who seemed very ominous and very dark, Puff was really light public facing, but privately just as evil and just as maniacal by some accounts,
Mm.
you know? And I have plenty of friends who were signed to that record label. I have plenty of friends who knew him. I have friends that worked with him, for him, around him. And I've had my own experiences with him professionally, and I ain't never had no problem because ain't too many people scare me. But the thing of it is, absolute power corrupts absolutely. This isn't a situation of him being a black man being railroaded. It's part of that. But if we were to make this a pie, I would say that's 20%. There's a big hop in 80% here that comes down to, number one, you serve a particular purpose to a particular group of people. Number two, you are used by another group of people in order to nail other people to the wall. And number three, you have the horrible delusion of believing that you can do what they do just because you hang out with a lot of them. And that's where a lot of this is coming from. And when you do something on that level, like every action has an equal and opposite reaction, Dre. And I know for a fact that once that pendulum swings this way, it's coming back and it's going to backslap you like Rick James. Like it's just what it is.
So speaking of they, and you mentioned Suge Knight, there was
Mhm.
a phone call that said, "Yo, Puff, eventually you just gonna have to. You didn't want to turn yourself in. Eventually, you got to face the music." Basically saying, who was in those rooms.
Mhm.
What was he trying to say? What was he talking about?
Okay, bro. I will say this because I don't believe in. Listen. Shout out to my Philadelphia sister Jaguar. Right. I ain't gonna name no names,
Mm.
but I'll give you some nice Easter eggs. Right. There are some very unpredictable people who have also been on a ride along who have, been swallowed up and have also found themselves being irreplaceable and forever young in and out of New York, who have also been in those rooms and have done things allegedly. So from that you can derive, and I ain't even come close to the Oscar winners, the senators, the governors, the other televangelists that have been in those rooms. Because it's like anything else, man. In the industry, and I don't know how much you know about it, but in the industry, there's always a party, right? Like, do you remember Jay-Z said after the show, there's the after party. After the party, there's a hotel
Hmm.
party. After the Velvet is probably Chris, and after the original is probably this. There's a party, there's the after party, then there's the after party, and then there's what I call the debauchery. That's like, yo, You got a wife and kids, take your ass home. You got somebody you love, take your ass home. If you ain't trying to be on this tape, take your ass home, right? Then you got people who couldn't understand why these parties cost so much. There is a very famous clip of Jamie Foxx talking about, yo, I can throw just a dope party with $400. And he got some KFC and some soda pop and a couple other things, and they got it popping. What happened? I don't know. I wasn't at that one.
Mm.
But again, extravagance, and then there's a underbelly in all cultures, right? White Snake did this, Kiss did this. To this day, Gene Simmons running around with his weird tongued out self doing stuff. And they have all of these debaucherous things happen and nobody cares. But when you're a CEO and you get to $1 billion and you happen to have the wrong complexion and you have outgrown your usefulness, then guess what happens to you? Every 30 years, they got to replace you. You think Puff was the first? Okay. Who did Puff work for before he started Bad Boy?
Who did Puff work for before he started Bad Boy?
Yeah,
Was it Andre Harrell?
correct.
Okay.
And the um American history says that Paul Revere rode all the way up and down the East Coast saying the British are coming, one if by land, two if by sea. And the truth of the matter is, there's a guy named Israel Thistle. But Israel Thistle don't sound dope as "Listen, my friends, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere." So whenever you're faced with the truth of the legend, you print the legend. So legend has it that Andre Harrell just couldn't have two kings in the jungle. Okay. And Puff was so distraught that he went home and unplugged his phone. And for 3 days, nobody could get a hold of him. And when he plugged his phone back in, even though in 1991 there were no digital answering machines, so when he plugged his phone back in, he had all these messages. And then he went and met with Clive Davis and came back with the whole Big Mac thing and got the distribution from Arista Records to start Bad Boy. Maybe some people allegedly are convinced that possibly he was introduced to a freak off of his own with Clive Davis, and that's how he sealed that deal. Um, then you also have to look at what Clive Davis has done. Milli Vanilli, Whitney Houston, Luther Vandross, Mario, Alicia Keys, they all have one person in common, and it ain't good.
Yeah,
It's Clive Davis.
I've heard a lot of crazy stuff about Clive. Even with Whitney, they try to say that he's responsible for her death on her catalog. All these weird things about Clive, and now they're trying to say
I
that.
refuse to get into any type of speculation that will indicate that Clive Davis is in any way, shape, or form responsible for the death of an artist for his own personal gain. I will not do that at any given time, Dre. I don't
Mm,
know if you can see me, but if at any given time, I will not at all co-sign that.
mm.
All I'm saying is go watch that Milli Vanilli documentary. Go watch any documentary about Whitney Houston. Bobby Brown ain't had no drug problem until he got with her.
Mm. They're well, because Eddie Griffin had claimed out he's like he got tapes on Clive, he got tapes at the people at Universal.
Sure.
How was he managing? Was he really recording and documenting these things?
A lot of people who understand how this thing goes have tapes. There's reasons that I can talk about things with people that I've had run-ins with, worked with, and for. And notice one, I've never been sued, and no one has ever said I was lying. You can't find nobody refuting anything that I'm saying. You can find plenty of people saying, no, he's telling the truth.
Mm.
Some of that has to do with if something happens to me, it's going to be you think Cat Williams did some damage, bruh. I got tapes, CDs, flash drives, the whole smear, because that's what it is. Like at all times, man. Like the problem with people is they believe the entertainment industry is the entertainment industry. No, this is a boxing match. Number one rule of a boxing match is protect yourself at all times. That's it.
'Cause I seen him with Obama. Obama was actually at a Diddy party. What is
Mhm.
what was the significance, and why the Democrats playing so closely with people like Puff? I saw him with Hillary too. Um,
Yeah, I'll put it to you like this, right? If you have one particular party that knows that a certain demographic of people are in bed with another party, they're not going to waste their time. They're going to hedge their bets on the rivers and the lakes that they're used to. However, the party that lets men with breasts on the White House lawn, the party that calls young black males super predators and gets absolutely no pushback. The party that has a senator who became Secretary of State who was a Goldwater girl who said, we're going to bring them to heel. A party that has elected a vice president and a president who said that he didn't want his kids growing up in a racial jungle. Oh, what's their significance? Go back in your head. And please, you and your audience, fact check me. Go back in your head, or maybe go back, I don't know, 4 years or so. 2020, during the pandemic, D Nice, hell of a rapper, hell of a DJ, all of a sudden, all of these Democrats were in his live, watching him mix in club quarantine. To quote Omar Johnson, you don't find that suspicious? Bruh, come on, man. They go where they know they can make a difference. That's why you got all of these folks, and they're all clicked in and they're all linked in. See, everything has a price. You don't just get that. Look at how record companies structure their deals. Okay. First of all, you sign, you'll get between 8 to 15%. But the first thing they do is they give you an advance. Let's say the advance is 500,000, right? They are taking, let's say if they take they give you 8%, they're taking the other 92%. Every time somebody opens a microphone up, every time somebody buys an outfit for you, every time somebody gets a bottle of water on your video set, and the video set in and of itself, the extras, the bad bitches, all of that is paid for out of your 8 to 15%. Then that advance you got, they'll say, oh, this particular rapper got a $30 million deal. You know what that means? That means they got a lifetime slavery contract, because they'll never make that back. Because once they get what's called recoupables, then what they'll do, especially if you're making hits, they'll just give you another advance. And so you're constantly working in this slave chain of paying back all of the stuff. And then Leor Cohen invented the 360 deal. So now they got your name, your image, your likeness, your tour money, any type of deals that you do digitally, online or offline. They got a piece of everything you do, because they're saying that they created you. Even though now the means of distribution and production, come down to this. We don't do a whole lot of CDs and 8 tracks and tapes no more. But guess what? The same way you'll go to a movie theater, even if you got a Fandango account or an AMC account, you'll still see people stand in line to buy their tickets from the pimply faced kid at the stand, instead of going to a kiosk or just using the app, because they're conditioned by tradition. So I say all that to say, you think you're not going to take a couple of thousand off by working with this particular candidate? You think that two of the biggest stars in the world who are married to each other just came out and endorsed a woman who said that, that particular generation was going to be brought to heel? You think they just endorsed her for the sake of endorsing her because they just care so much about the country? You think those parties that were happening in the White House with all the concerts and stuff were just goodwill gestures in order to get the hip hop community on their side? We vote at low minimum 88% for Democrats. So why do you need to pander to us anymore when they're going to vote anyway? They got little slogans to vote blue no matter who. So the entertainers have always been weaponized, going as far back as Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack, on behalf of the Democratic Party, primarily. Not exclusively, but primarily. But when it comes to black people, almost always exclusively, except for the ones that we shun, or except for the ones that understand that the only way to get anything done in this country is to do it through both sides of the aisle. Even the gays get that. That's Caitlyn Jenner. So yeah, they're tied in and they're clicked in, because they can pull that card at any given moment. And oh, hey, don't you want to go with this? Don't you want to do that? Don't you want to go ahead and be a brand ambassador? Wouldn't you like a trip to this? It's all quid pro quo, and everybody's getting paid, while all you Negroes are getting played.